Welcome to it. This is Know Your Power, the podcast series brought to you by VW Amarok. And over the course of this series, we want you to firstly discover the man that is Seabelo Senatla, but most importantly, help you tap into what real power is. Seabelo knows that his power comes from the people around him, and he surrounds himself with excellence, brilliance, and humility. In this episode, we get into his relationship with Paddy Upton and talk about leadership and how important the mind is to uncovering your power. The first 5 episodes are live right now, so make sure you get them all by clicking the link in the bio of your favorite podcast app.
Well, I think it's quite important to know that one can never do it by themselves. I relied heavily on myself, obviously, in the civil setup, but that's because things were very structured there and that allows you to just focus on rugby. I stayed at SAS, which is a world-class facility where you get fed, you get, you get sleeps, you literally get everything, and the only thing that you have to focus on is literally just rugby. So when I moved out of that, I had these vacancies that were always like a guarantee in my life, and kind of like, I had nothing to bounce off. So like I had to literally try to round all these things up, which ate of my focus of rugby, right? So that's the first thing I realized, that I needed to maneuver differently and have people that are going to be my guidances, if I may call it that. And having someone like Paddy is so important because he's not just a sports psych. He actually hates being said or being called that, or someone say that he's a sports psych. He hates it. What I'd like to refer to him as is a sports director. And what I mean about that, obviously, like he does a lot of work, a lot of personal work with myself, and kind of like gears me with all the army that I need to fight this battle. But what else he does is he talks to the people in and around me, the people that matter to me, the people that love, because the people that you love are the people that can hurt you and the people that can misdirect you unintentionally. So what he does is he talks to those people and makes sure that everyone is on the same page and all shooting in the same direction, so that we're all aligned. And obviously, we're walking towards the bigger goal at hand.
Man, that is, wow. Paddy, I'm not sure if you ever heard him put it like that. Now I've got to sign up because, I'm looking.
Basically, what Paddy does? Basically, he takes my problems away from me. That's what he does.
Paddy, where do I sign up? How much money do you need? I'm willing to eat beans and toast for the rest of my life to have somebody like that in my life. And, Paddy, there's different levels. And I love what, what Seabelo is referring to there, is the team around him. Sometimes we see, and it's not just a sportsman, but in this particular framework is a sportsman performing the tries, the superstars, he's getting the awards, he's on the podiums. And we forget that there must be an infrastructure if that's going to last. Because Seabelo now is it's not a fly-by-night guy. It's not what we call umafiki zolo, and now he's trying to just get a quick buck and get out of it. He's shown he's a little bit more than that. And Paddy, I found this message that you sent us quite incredible. And I'd love you to speak to what he said and the team set up. Is that you said, the thing about Seabelo is he's an amazing all-round package. He has great talent and works hard to convert that talent into amazing results. Not all talent gets converted into amazing results. So Paddy, take us through your background and then just into your relationship with Seabelo. Did you approach him? Did he approach you? And it's all yours.
Yeah, thanks to start off, thanks very much for inviting me into this conversation. My background, I guess it's a long background, but maybe to shorten it if I can. I'm passionate about people and the people side of performance. In the last 20 years, there's been such an infiltration of sports science and data and technologies that has really taken the game on in the last 20 years significantly. However, that contribution of science, to me, it's becoming less and less because everyone has access to the same data, the same technology, the same video analysis. So it's leveled the playing field. It's getting the best out of what sits within the athlete, getting the best out of themselves. And that's what I'm passionate about. And there's a lot of ways to do that. You know, the culture within which the athlete's operating is very, very important. I have too many conversations helping athletes navigate difficulties that actually arises from within the culture, generally the way senior players or captains or coaches or leadership are creating an environment where there's too much unnecessary pressure or fear or lack of role clarity. So that's an unfortunate obstacle that happens for too many even professional athletes. So one, that's the culture within the team, and the other is within the own player's mind, their mindset. You know, I'm just passionate about understanding different individuals, and really, I mean, I don't, Seabelo said I take his problems away. I certainly don't do that. I just maybe help him see his problems and his thoughts from different perspectives and come to resolution himself, because almost always, you know, the solution does sit within us, and it's just how we're looking at it that prevents us seeing the solution. And sometimes it's just opening the vision, seeing it from a different perspective, and then the answer, you know, it appears, you know, it becomes self-evident.
And I think it's important at this point to also say that I've got problems, Paddy, because as you were saying, that is that Seabelo's problems often come in a package where, oh, you got some problems as well.
Yeah,
all right, I'll go first.
That. Welcome to the human race, bud.
Welcome.
Oh, so it's not just me. Oh, this is terrible.
Not at all.
Oh, okay, well, I might as well not tell you then. But I just want to tell you, Seabelo's problems come in 120 kilogram Fijian every now and then, and everything that comes with that. My problems is bread. Now, I want to know, would you be able to get me, you know, would you be able to solve that problem? Make me not eat so much bread so that I wouldn't have this belly fat. You know what I mean?
Well,
are those the kind of problems you can solve?
Before Paddy answers,
yeah, go for it.
Before you answer, Paddy, I don't think my problem is a 120 kilogram man coming at me. My problems are more subtler than that, and that's where it's so important, right? I don't care for no man. I have no fear of no man. I literally, that's the easy part. I reckon yes. the hardest part or the hardest section is having to deal with subtle things. I'll give an example. I've been playing 15s for about 4 years now. When Paddy came into my life, there was misalignment between my coaches and myself in terms of how I wanted to play. You know, I had a certain way of playing. I had, you know, different strengths and obviously different weaknesses. And I was not allowed to play in a manner that benefits me. You know, I was otherwise, you know, instructed to play a different game, which is not my game. And stuff like that can hinder your confidence, because now you're playing towards a place of lack and not a place of abundance. So those subtle type of problems is the type of problems that he solves for me, not the 120 kilogram Fijian that we physically see. It's more in your subconscious, and that's the type of conversations we have with Paddy all the time, which I think are way more important than anything else.
I just want to say at this stage, that must be an awesome thing to be able to say. I'm not afraid of a 120 kilogram guy. I'm going to sidestep him. My problem, I mean, we're getting into here, Paddy, but I just want to say, to be that level of human being, to say, 120, get that out of here. I'm going to sidestep and probably drop kick it myself. That is an awesome thing. But Paddy, we're touching on real life now, and it doesn't matter how great you are. It doesn't matter what sidestep you got. It doesn't matter how far you hit the cricket ball. I think the man was starting to realize how important the man behind all of that is in order to make it not just a fly-by-night, but in order to make it sustainable, that 4, 5, 6 time repeat season. And as Seabelo says, is that synergy with his coaches, which seems small. It's like, this guy's got the talent, just put him in with a coach and they'll be fine. Him and Dobson, get on with it, we'll leave him. But this is an incredible thing to hear from somebody this gifted. And from your side, where do you start with, I mean, this is precocious talent you're dealing with. Where do you start with going, all right, wherever your talent is, it needs to align not just to yourself and your goals, but to the team? Where would you start with a guy like Seabelo when he was having that, I think you called it a misalignment?
Yeah, sure. So many great questions. So I think the one thing that, just to carry on what Seb said, was, you know, what almost all athletes and almost all people, our most formidable opponent is actually in our own head. It's in our own thinking. It's in our perspectives that are maybe, you know, misinformed. It's in our inability to accept things that are outside of our control. Too often we find ourselves resisting and judging things outside of our control, and that just creates anxiety. There's people who have a problem with traffic, or the fact that it's raining outside, or you don't have water, or you don't have electricity, or COVID is in town. Those things are outside of our control. And the key to having ease and flow and joy in almost any aspect of life is quite simple. It's one, to take the right action where we have control over things, and where we don't have control, to have the right attitude to those things outside of our control, which means having an acceptance and a surrender and a non-judgment to that which is. And then straight away, we have a certain amount of ease and flow. We don't have unnecessary or excess struggles and anxiety and stresses. So we can actually then use our mental energy, which it's a finite resource, to be able to attend to the things that are useful or important. So very often it's actually just helping ourselves get out of our own way is a huge step towards finding the solutions that, and if there's a solution, we can find it. If there isn't, then we accept that there isn't, we accept the moment, and we move on, because again, that's part of life. Not every problem has a solution.
So now, Mr. Senatla, I have a question for you, right? I am not, unfortunately, as talented in anything as you are, but there must have been an interesting time in your life, because I don't know when in your life you'd say at what age you started being not just a guy, but there's a time when your talent comes through and now you're that guy, whether it was back home in Valcom and then you came, obviously, now you're in the big time, and even there now you're the guy. At what stage did you start to say to yourself, how many years after getting serious would you say you realized my talent's not going to be enough? Did it take you a while, or was it quite easy for you up front? I'd be really, really interested to hear how it went internally, because talented people, you can be tricky.
Yeah, I think I was very lucky in a sense to have never thought that I had talent. I always say to people, my talent is artificial. And I say that in a very respectful way, because I feel like I worked so hard at creating this person that you see today. We alluded to it earlier on. Murray was telling you, like, I work extremely hard. Like, I put my head in a block, even say, I'm the hardest working rugby player around. That's how much I work. So that's why I can say stuff like my talent is artificial, because I've seen a lot of talented people that were not willing to work, and somehow just surpassed them because I just put the work in. So that's why earlier I was saying in the other podcast, like, it's important for kids to see that, to see what you're doing and to see how hard you're working, so that when it appears on TV, it's not just oh my God, he's talented, he's good, but it's oh my God, he worked for this. And that's quite important.
Yeah, we got a similar approach. Yeah. I used to beat everyone on FIFA, on PlayStation 1 way back when. And it's because I used to put in the work. Now, that affected my school marks incredibly. I just want to be clear. But when guys came over to my house, they knew what was what. I put in the work, and my dad was not happy about that. But now I'm going to tell my dad, because I don't think my dad ever thought I'd get to meet these two legends. I'm going to tell him, Dad, I put in the hours, and I got outcomes.
Yeah,
that's beautiful, man.
I just really want to reinforce what Seabelo said there was, I say openly that to me, talent it's not an achievement. It's not an accomplishment. It's a gift from birth, or from your parents, or from one of your genes, or whatever your beliefs are. But it's a gift from birth. The hard work that someone puts into taking their talent and realizing it into results, that's something that's special. And when you've got, of course, Seabelo's got amazing talent, but what he's done is he's worked so hard, and even I say not hard, but smartly is probably a better word, certainly that I like, to convert that talent into the best possible chance of results at the highest level. And those are two such simple and obvious things. You don't have to have that much talent, but if you put in the work, it sets you ahead of probably 95% of your competition. And I'm sure we'll get to it, but there's one or two other pieces that you can bolt onto Seb's talent plus hard work that sets him apart again from a number of his peers at this highest level.
And so Paddy, I'd better be very, very careful, because you could take my job. That is what in my business we call a fantastic segue. because you've just segued us. You've taken, seamless. Now I understand why Sachin Tendulkar mentioned you in that speech. I get it now. But a mentor of mine said something interesting, and I heard Seabelo now, and he set something off in me when he was saying what he was saying and what you said. She said to me once was that if I have to come and tell you to be great, you'll never be great. And what you're saying with Seabelo was he came to you, from what I'm understanding. So I'd like to tap a little bit in how you guys work together. But do you agree with that notion that the great ones always come to you? Gary Kirsten, Sachin Tendulkar, Rahul Dravid. What can you correlate between the Seabelo and the ones that we obviously know the names that I've mentioned that go great? No excuses, just are great.
So, I mean, that's a great question. It's fascinating that you actually use some of those names because, so there's one, the talent, there's two, the hard work that does convert someone into a really special player. But there's another piece that is a hunger to learn even more, to be even better, to keep looking and searching. And if I just have a very quick snapshot over the 25 years I've worked in elite sport is, the first person, when I was actually the strength and conditioning coach with the South African cricket team back in the 1990s, I was the only full-time fitness trainer in world cricket. That position didn't exist in 1994. And India came to play against South Africa. And in day 2 of that tour, I got a phone call in my room. And this youngster said, "Hi, my name's Rahul Dravid. I believe you're the fitness trainer. I've never heard about fitness actually being a full-time thing in cricket. Can I buy you lunch and pick your brain?" I go forward, a very young, during the IPL, a very young cricketer who made his first IPL, and we played against Sunrisers Hyderabad, and they arrived in Jaipur. I was with the Rajasthan team, and I got a phone call in my room, and there was this guy who said, "Hi, my name's Kane Williamson. I would love to buy you lunch and pick your brain. I've got some questions for you." And then, to jump ahead, Seabelo's one of those people that he gets to the top of the game. He moves over to 15. He's got everything it takes to be able to succeed. And then I get a phone call saying, "Hi, can we please meet with you?" And literally Seabelo and his agent Tilden said, literally, "Can we buy you lunch and want to pick your brains? And we've got some ideas." And straight away it's like, okay, I recognize this brand of athlete who is right at the top, and they're going, we are looking around to get even better. And there's something special for me when there's that openness to learning and that hunger to be even better.
And Paddy, do you think you can teach that? So sorry, sir. Do you think you can teach that, or is that fire just there's certain demons that have that? These guys, these girls.
No, I mean, I'd love to hear what Seb's going to say, but I don't know if you could teach it. I think it comes from within, and it also comes from, I think, some mentoring at a young age. I would be interested to know if somebody helped Seb keep those blinkers open and not be, it's about me and I'm so good and everyone look at me, but I'm looking outwards for more, as opposed to expecting people to look at me and go, "Hey, I'm the shit." I mean, that's a technical term in sport, by the way.
Yeah. No, that's Oxford.
MKT's talking about earlier. It's that urge for or to seek greatness all the time. You know, that urge to know that you never really arrived. Every piece of information or every piece of helping that you can get from anyone, will be useful. We like calling it the 1%ers. I'm always looking for the 1%er, and that's what I do all the time. But I was not going to say that. I was going to tell you something quite funny about my introduction to Paddy, because he was not quite interested in doing the one-on-one thing. He was more into corporate, and we kind of like forced him to look at us like, "Yo, please, just lunch. And then after that lunch, you kind of convinced him to do this thing. So that's quite funny, but very special in a way.
So, I mean, as I'm listening to you there, Paddy, I know you're probably Kane Williamson, Rahul Dravid. Just thought I'd let you know that I'm also, looking at the age of 35 to see if I can come to you and buy you lunch. Now, obviously, I'm probably going to a fast food restaurant. A guy like you, I do not have Rahul Dravid's budget. But if Kane Williamson and Rahul Dravid are coming to you, I just thought I'd show you that I've also got a bat. You know what I mean?
Okay, cool.
All right.
Give us a shot. Yeah.
Do with it what you will. I've got a cricket bat as well. But Sabs, I go ahead.
so I was gonna waver a little bit. I was gonna ask that we talk about a very important concept, which I've learned from this man, and that's kind of like what opened me up as a person as well, the way I do things. Is the concept of vulnerability and how it's seen in the world right now and what it actually is. You know, a lot of us see vulnerability as some sort of weakness because obviously you appear weak, but we don't understand what it does for you to open up yourself like that. So I just want you to chat a little bit about that, because we've had plenty of conversations, ongoing about this concept, and it's one that really fascinates me and it keeps me like very intrigued, because it's not really one-faced, but yeah, I'm sure you can stretch it further.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I would. So yes, I would love to talk a bit more about this, but maybe to put it back to you and talk about your journey around vulnerability and how it's played out in your game, in your life.
Yeah, we can do that. We can do that. I mean, yeah, I was not a very open person at first. I always, like I said, when I was at the Sevens, everything was there. So I was literally just focused on certain things, and I kept myself at that. The aim was just to be the best. No feels, don't show pain, no nothing. We used to call it Nelson even. We had this Nelson call that you don't show anything. You don't show any pain. You don't show any tight. You don't show anything. And also that kind of like translated in my life, because when I was suffering and stuff, when I felt sadness, when I was afraid, when I had fear, all of those things, we tend to block those emotions instead of confronting them and saying, okay, despite what I'm feeling, I'm kind of aware of this feeling, yes, and acknowledge it, but I'm going to act despite of. And I think that's a very important conversation, because people think that, if you fear, then it's a blockage. No, it's not a blockage. Yes, we do have those emotions all the time.
Yeah.
We talked about not fearing anything, but sometimes I'm nervous before a game, and it's okay to be nervous. We're all human here. But it's that frame of mind to go, okay, I'm nervous, acknowledge it. I'm not trying to sweep it away or block it or whatever. I accept it, but I'm going to move into this game with this nervousness and still overcome it. Because that's what it really is, right?
Wow.
Yeah, so that's powerful, and that, there's this concept in sport that is really, it's kind of a key concept of mental strength or mental toughness, and I've spoken a lot that I really don't believe in that concept at all. I've actually said it's like Superman or Father Christmas. We all know about it, but it doesn't actually exist. In that, I've never met an athlete or even a human, in for that matter, who is, according to that definition, like fully mentally tough, confident, secure, positive thinking, who doesn't have doubts, vulnerabilities, insecurities, and negative thoughts. It's perfectly normal to have that. But for some reason, more recently or for how long, it's been made not okay to have those doubts, vulnerabilities, insecurities, and negative thoughts as an athlete. So what athletes try and do is they try and hide the fact that they're experiencing those perfectly normal human emotions and thoughts. They hide it from their coach. They hide it from their teammates. Of course, you want to hide it from your competitors or your opposition. But what happens is it starts eating people up from inside. And then even worse than that, a lot of athletes think, because I have these doubts or insecurities or fears, they think something's wrong with them. And then they start internally waging an internal battle with these thoughts and emotions that they think they shouldn't be having, and that's not normal and that are problematic. So really what the conversation that Seabelo and I have been having is, it's perfectly normal to be human, and humans have doubts, vulnerabilities, insecurities, and every athlete does. But the athletes that get through them are those who manage them best. And it's not about ignoring them, it's not sweeping them under the table, and it's also not eradicating them, because the reality is that's not possible. It's, as Seabelo said, number one, accepting and embracing them as perfectly normal. Nothing wrong, don't fight them, don't judge them. Then it's about going, okay, but that's a voice in my head. I'm just going to turn the voice down on that particular doubt or vulnerability for now, because it's just something, and it's not necessarily true. And I'm going to work on focusing what I really need to be focusing on, what's important in this moment, which is catching the ball, running with the ball, defending, whatever play I need to be running. And that's front and center. But these doubts and vulnerabilities, it's almost, they're still going on there. They like to just quietly tick away in the background, but I'm not giving them center stage. And I'm not going to resist them, because as soon as we try and resist them or push them away, they just get stronger. And one last thing on that, I mean, the amount of athletes I still get today, all the way up to professional level, who say, when I'm approaching a big moment, I've got some of this fear and pressure and anxiety, and I wonder if you can help me get rid of it. And it's like, dude, who's taught you that this shouldn't be happening? It's a problem and something that needs to get rid of. Wrong. You need just to embrace it, be okay with it, and navigate it a little bit better, that it can sit in the back seat and the correct thoughts can sit in the front seat with you while you're driving.
And wow.
Yes, I'm cutting you a lot there, man.
No. I'm sitting in on a session on you guys. I'm actually just going to get my cricket bat up here just so Paddy doesn't forget.
And I focus deliberately on vulnerability because I've realized in my own life and obviously my own profession that once I tap into that, instead of what we have learned it to be this blockage and something that makes you feel weak, you get empowered because, you know, kind of like embracing them or like acknowledging that this is happening to you, it kind of like frees in a way. There's some sort of liberation, and suddenly you don't have, you know, that sense of uselessness because you can't control this, but you move beyond that. It's like, okay, I've confronted this. It is there, so what? You know, and you felt empowered because you opened with yourself and you freed now because you have confronted this thing. It's something so fascinating. I don't know how to put it in words like Paddy does, but I've felt it in my world ever since I've confronted it.
And Paddy, I find that amazing, right? Because as you guys were talking, I was just thinking of my own life in my personal life and how applicable it is, and truly to our notion of knowing your power. Was I thought to myself, you know, when I used to play sports as a little guy, was, I would say, the loneliest place in the world when I was younger, I thought was losing, right? And then you get a little bit better and you get in better teams and you start winning. And I thought to myself, the loneliest place in the world actually is winning and not being able to share it with your loved ones. Like you're saying, if you don't deal with those around you, I've always found that a pleasure shared is a pleasure doubled. And to what you're saying now is that can become a self-fulfilling loop, right? Where winning and losing are both bitter, and then that creates those doubts and they become monsters and even bigger monsters. And I find that absolutely incredible. And Paddy, I wanted to just ask you again and quickly revert back to the vulnerability thing. Once you started being vulnerable yourself as a practitioner, I mean, do you need to open yourself up to the athlete so that they can respond to you? What sort of techniques have you found worked? And then I want to ask you directly about Seabelo is, I mean, I've given you the quote, but what is the one thing about him which you think makes him stand out since you've started working with him?
Yeah. Sure, there's so much cool stuff running around in my head here. So I love what you say, just to go back, what is it? A something shared is doubled? Tell me
a pleasure shared is a pleasure doubled. A pleasure shared is a pleasure doubled.
Shared is a pleasure doubled. And what comes to me is a worry or a problem shared is a problem or worried halved.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. Wow, that's powerful.
But you triggered that. Thank you very much.
Yes. Teamwork. See, we're sharing.
There we go. Beautiful.
But yeah.
So that the sharing the vulnerability is a piece of it. For me, the overarching thing is being real. And being real means when you're up, and you're not egotistically or egoically up and over self-congratulatory. And similarly, when you have a doubt or a vulnerability, as Seb says, and you can be real about that, that is so empowering, because that we talk about bring all of yourself onto the rugby field or to journalism, or bring all of yourself to what you do. And then that's your unique signature in this world, is who you are. Everyone's got the similar skills and similar personality types and measurements, but the only thing that's uniquely us is all of who we are. And vulnerability, particularly amongst males and particularly male athletes, that's the one thing that we don't bring to the equation. So we only bring part of ourselves to the picture. And, you know, there's great stuff out there now. You know, Brene Brown does that TED Talk. That's one of the most watched TED Talks in the world about the power of vulnerability. And, you know, some of my, you know, clients who, for example, very religious, the Christian ones, we help them find, what does that saying mean when they say the truth shall set you free? What does that really mean if you are Christian? And how does that play out in your profession? You know, stand in your truth, which means all of who you really are. And that will really open you, expand you. And that is what it is to be human. So, you know, and it was amazing how quickly and beautifully, and that talks the kind of person he is, Seabelo embraced that concept and then literally embrace it, because it's difficult. Sometimes it takes more courage to be vulnerable in front of people than it is to stand in front of that 120 kilogram Samoan. It probably is more difficult at the highest level, or it's more difficult to be vulnerable in the dressing room for a batsman than it is to face a bowler bowling at 150 kilometers an hour, because they're so trained and conditioned for that. So it really is a beautiful thing when we can show our humanness in this so-called superhuman world of sport, which Seabelo will tell you, no one's a superhuman. They're just ordinary people who are lucky to be born with a great talent and smart enough to work really hard to convert that talent.
And superb dreads, by the way. I don't know if you're seeing that, Paddy, from your side. I can't grow hair any longer than this. Those dreads, I always see him and I'm like, ugh. That guy, if I could catch him, I'd have a word with him. Superb dreads. We have to add that in, because I do believe, like Samson, there is some power in those dreads. They are very, very real. Listen, gents, before we wrap it up, right, Paddy, I'd like to know, because what you've opened me up to here, and as I was thinking about it, because I'm constantly thinking, oh my goodness, Seabelo, the rugby player. But I'd like to know for you, Seabelo, the man, because and he says it himself constantly, is that only a small part of me is the rugby player. But what do you think is next for Seabelo Senatla, the man?
So one thing, to answer it slightly differently, is that Seabelo does beautifully. He's able to separate out, as you said, who Seabelo the man is. And one of the things which he happens to do is be a rugby player. That's only going to last for 15 or maybe 20 years. He will be the man for his entire life. So he works really hard on being the best rugby player he can be, but at the same time, it's working on being the best human being we can be, because that's the benefit of that lasts a lifetime. And that's what really, as Seabelo said, when I first met him, I wasn't open to do one-on-one coaching, but I met the man. I met it's like, okay, this is what I buy into. This is what I love. He has a really good human. He's got a great other orientation. He's aware of other people. He does great stuff in the world. He's not someone who turns a limelight back on himself. He has a great person who also happens to be a great athlete. And for me, great athletes don't impress me. But when you have a great person who is humble, feet in the ground, hungry to learn, other-oriented, kind, caring, thoughtful, compassionate, all those beautiful things, and a great athlete, it's relatively unique in the world of elite sports. But when you get that combination, and Seabelo, to me, he lives that, and he's constantly living and thriving that. And he makes mistakes as well, and he owns up to them, and he's also human around that, like every single one of us. For me, that's what really is beautiful, not the fact that he's a great, entertainer on the rugby field. There's other guys like that as well. But there's two components here, and for me, that's true greatness. And he's on that journey, and dude, Seabelo, you keep your feet firmly on that journey. Take the odd step off every now and again, but keep coming back to it as you have been. And the entire world beyond, in rugby and beyond it, is your oyster.
I got to be honest, I might just sell this podcast on my own, actually, because the millions I could make off some of the gold, because this is what it's about. Sebs, I'll let you have the last word here, because it sounds to me like through this vulnerability, you really are getting to know your power. And for those who don't know, Senatla means strength. Senatla is a strong human. It means that this is a superhuman human, and we're redefining that. So, Sabs, I'll let you take it away as we wrap up what's been an awesome convo. As you get to know your power, I'll let you wrap up vulnerability, dealing with it, and sharing your journey with other people through that.
Yeah, I think it's quite important to know that, you know, power has different faces. You know, power is not always bold and masculine. You know, sometimes power can be a little bit undressed and feminine as well. And those two balances of life always come together. We can't just live on the one side. We need to tap into the other. That's what true power is. And I find myself a very lucky man to live in that truth, because as males, vulnerability is something that's shone upon. You know, you're not supposed to be vulnerable. Men don't cry. We've had all of those sayings growing up, but that really takes away from our true power, because we are eating off that balance that should be the softer part of us. So I'd encourage everyone to, you know, to explore that side of them. It's really not a weakness. It's empowerment. I see it as empowerment, and it is pretty tougher to do than the other side. So Brené Brown, as Paddy talked about, calls it daring greatly. So if you want to dare greatly, I urge you to literally explore that part of your life as well.
I can't say it any better. Paddy Upton, Seabelo Senatla, you two are continuing to say, you know what, I won't say you are legends. You are constantly legends in the making, because the inspiration that people will get from this is tangible and real. And my takeaway from this, gentlemen, as I thank both of you, is to say, talent is not an achievement. But let's remember this, with that talent, you will have problems. A problem shared is a problem halved. And then we're on our way to knowing our power. The great Paddy Upton and the enigmatic and fantastic Seabelo Senatla.